In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to handle exceptions in your programs. So continuing with the code from the last lecture, to handle the value error exception here, we need to put the statement in a try block. So we add try, colon, we indent it, and then after try, we need to add an except clause. What is the type of the exception that we get if the user enters a non-numeric value? That's a value error exception. You saw that in the last lecture, right? So we add the except clause, and then we'll print a friendly error message, like you didn't enter a valid age. So this is how this works. When Python sees a try block, it will execute every statement in this block. If any of these statements throws an exception, the code in the except clause will be executed. If we don't have any exceptions, this code will not be executed. Let me show you. So, save the changes. Back in the terminal, let's run the program. I'm going to enter a valid age. So our program completed successfully. No error messages. Beautiful. I'm going to run the program one more time. This time, I'm going to enter A for the age. So, we got a friendly error message, and our application didn't crash. This is the important thing about handling exceptions. If you don't handle exceptions properly, your program will crash. So, in other words, if we add another statement here, let's print execution continues. In this example, because we are handling this exception properly, this statement will be executed. Let me show you. So back in the terminal, let's run the program one more time. Enter A. We got our friendly error message, and also you can see the execution of our program continued. In contrast, in the last lecture where we didn't have the try block, if we put this print statement after getting user's age, this line would not be executed. Okay? We also have an optional else clause here. So else colon. And what we put inside this block will be executed if no exception is thrown in the code that we add in the try block. So let's print a message like no exceptions were thrown. Save the changes. Back in the terminal, let's run this one more time. I enter a valid age. You can see this message, no exceptions were thrown. So what we have in the else clause will only be executed if we don't have any exceptions. This is very similar to our for else loops. Remember for else? Earlier when I talked about for else loops, I told you that the else clause is executed if we don't break out of the for loop. In other words, if the for loop completes, then the else clause is executed. So here's a basic structure for handling exceptions. Now, one more thing before we finish this lecture. Here, when handling the exception, we can optionally define a variable that will include the details about the exception, mostly the error message and sometimes additional arguments. So here we add as, and then define a variable like error or x for exception. So after this error message, let's just print x. I'm also going to print type of x. Now let's run the program one more time. Enter A. So here's our friendly error message. Below that, we have the actual error message that is included in the exception. Invalid literal for int with base 10. Now, this is very technical to show to an end user, so we're not going to print it on the terminal. This is just for demonstration. And below that, you can see the type of this exception. It's an object of type value error.